Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you might be. My name is JP, and I've got Christos and Yafet here today. Christos, of course, is here every day. We've got Yafet as our
Thanks
special
for
guest
introducing me,
today.
man. Hi, I'm
So good
Christos.
morning.
Hi, I'm Christos. I'm a developer advocate for the identity team. And today with us we have Yafet. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I like the back and forth you guys have.
Yeah.
It's never too early.
It's never 45, so it could be early. I mean, that's the whole point of the name. It's the 45 show.
Well, we did push it up an hour. When we first started, it was 7 a.m. for Christos, so I can understand how it was way too early for him. 7 a.m., I'm not even out of bed.
So JP goes, let's do the show.
Uh-oh.
And he
I don't know
goes,
what happened there for a sec. Sorry.
You're pressing buttons. I think it's the COVID vaccine, man. You're all messed up.
I'm a little fuzzy
425
today.
I thought the 425 meant like the 425 zip code for like the Seattle Bellevue area.
It is.
It does.
It is.
It does.
Okay, so it is. Okay.
It does mean that.
But it's also the HTTP code for too early. So HTTP 425 is too early. So we thought, that's perfect.
Because
And then, of course,
10 a.m.
we had a
10 a.m. You need to check what
10
time
a.m.
zone. 10 a.m. Don't ever
Yeah.
agree on anything unless you check the time zone. Lesson learned.
yeah. I live in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina. Thus, I'm on East Coast. Christos is on the other coast. So
Oh, Sahil is online. Sahil, this show is just for you. We don't care about any other guests. Obviously, we care about our viewers, but this is a one-to-one for you because you've been bugging us since October 9th. So your wish is our command. We are actually doing Kotlin Android with B2C today. You can have it. But before we do that, we have Yafet, and Yafet is here to talk about exciting stuff with PHP. Right, Yafet? Like, what is this all about?
Well, yeah. Thanks. Wow, I don't know, this new love for PHP. I don't know where it's coming from. But
Well, we need to check a box. Our boss told us to be inclusive, so we need to bring more languages. And you got the short end of the stick. You have to do the PHP stuff.
The PHP, okay.
Yeah.
It'll be perfect.
Or Ruby. You got experience with Ruby, right? Hey, Bolt. Hey, Bruce. Hey, Vicious. Good morning to everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today, Yafet is going to talk to us about... no, I'm just kidding. Yafet, what do you do, buddy? And why are you here today?
Yeah, thanks, Christos. So I'm a PM on the loyalty team and identity, and today I kind of wanted to walk through the new app service authentication experience, otherwise popularly known as EasyAuth.
Are we allowed to call it EasyAuth these days, or is there like a moratorium on the name?
So I'll reference it as EasyAuth in the show, but
okay.
When you are on the app service blade, the blade itself is actually called authentication, right? Mm-hmm. But if anyone in the chat, if anyone watching has a strong sentiment against it, then I can use authentication also.
because what's the formal name is what? App Service Authentication, which is
app service authentication. Yeah,
about the most Microsoft name we could come up with. So, and now we've got App Service Authentication V2, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
don't steal his thunder. He's gonna talk about the new. It's not preview anymore. It's GA stuff, right?
Is it preview or GA?
GA.
It's GA now. Yes.
Okay, cool. Are you ready to show it to us? Can we take a look?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
So I'm gonna start by going over how creating an app service initially. I'm sure most of you are familiar with App Service. App Service is a platform where you can basically build, deploy, scale your web apps or APIs via functions. And so let me kind of walk through creating a web app really quickly. It's usually pretty easy. 425. For this show, I'll call it Ruby.
Yes, I'm telling you, Yafet is stepping up on the challenge.
One of the great things about app service is that you can do it in code, you can do a Docker container, you can have several like different types of runtime stacks that you can use. Again, we're going to use Ruby for today. You can do Linux or Windows, and it's super easy to create, right? Like it's pretty much done.
Central U.S. too. Thank you for being inclusive of people like
Very
me
inclusive, but
who don't live on the West Coast.
and we have people from London this morning. Smart Spring One, welcome to our stream. You're from London. How's London these days? Are you guys staying safe? Are you being vaccinated? Bold is actually it's calling out Microsoft's naming abilities. Hey, it's hard. Did you know that we actually have a team called the Naming Council, and you cannot name anything that is going to go in the public domain until you go through them? They're such a delight to work with. It takes months to actually get a name through. I'm not kidding. That was my bane of my life in marketing. Pubs are open. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I heard about that. Pubs are open in the UK, so that's great. You should be having a drink in the pub and watching us.
So our app service loaded up. So when you come to the overview page in app service, you'll find two authentication blades. This authentication classic would be the old experience. And so today we'll be going over the new one. And just to kind of give some context, over the last couple of months, the team has really spent a lot of time in better understanding what is the day one experience and how could we make it as simple as possible for users to integrate auth. And at the same time, how do we make it somewhat not only easy but more robust, right? So whereas in many like very common experiences, like I'm using authentication, but I'm also authorizing users or wanting to collect data via the graph, we try to combine these experiences into one, right? Which you'll see. So here I'm going to add my identity provider, and then it kind of kicks off the wizard. And one of the beauties about EasyAuth is you have the choice to add several identity providers, right? It's not just Microsoft specific or AAD specific. You can, if you're building a website and you want to sign in users via Facebook, Google, Twitter, you're able to do that. But for today, I'm just going to go over doing it with AAD. And the first thing that after selecting an identity provider with AAD, you create your app registration. And one best practice around this is we typically recommend that for every app service or site or function that you create an app registration for that specific site or function. And the reason is that so you keep the permissions that you're requesting if you are requesting permissions separate, right? If Christos is you created an app to do X and you created another app to do Y, maybe the types of permissions you request may not be the same. And so just as a security best practice, it's best to keep them separate. So here I'm going to create a new app registration. You can pick an existing one if you have one already, or you can provide the details for one. Sometimes developers do that to modify the issuer URL. And I'm going to require authentication, meaning that everyone trying to come to this site will have to authenticate. And then for this, I'm also going to I'm gonna do HTTP 302, and this is just because this is a site, right? The token store, you can turn this on or turn this off, but essentially what it does, it collects and stores and refreshes tokens for your app. So if your application codes need to access data from like Microsoft Graph API, for example, you typically would have to write code, collect, to come back and retrieve the token. And so this is really an easy way for you to not have to maintain your tokens.
Okay.
And I might have done something wrong here. It says...
Maybe it's the name.
Yeah, it's an. I think
name before.
yeah, I think it might be the name. require it. Okay, let me actually skip the part. I didn't do permissions. So baked into the experience is you're able to add a permission, add like Graph API permissions. And for this, I'll just add user email, update permissions, add.
Oh, we have a question. Can EasyAuth be used for headless applications too, or the app which doesn't understand OAuth or modern authentication? I suspect on a web job, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So you should be able to. Yes.
And Azure Functions. So if you're running Azure
So
Functions APIs, right?
Yeah. So if you have an API, similar thing. And if you go through the functions experience on the portal, it will look like the left-hand pane where the authentication blade is located will look the same way in that portal experience as well. So you don't have to remember two ways of how to do it.
Yes.
So we have it all set up, pretty quick and easy. Now let's go try it out.
Let's try it out.
Typically, it takes a couple minutes. So hopefully. Oh, there we go. It's
not even 2 minutes. Are you doing something on a different screen? Because
I'm using the Authenticator app on my phone, and so
nice.
And here you go. You saw that we requested some profiles, some permissions, and so you're gonna get that request. And
yeah, that didn't show on the screen. I think it was on a side screen.
The Authenticator app where I signed in. Is that what you're
No,
referring to?
where you consent into the permissions.
No, your browser, I think. I think we're only seeing the portal screen. We only see the Azure portal.
Correct.
Oh, okay. So let me. Wow. Let's see here.
So Bolt is asking whether you can section off allowing certain screens, and the answer is no. Is that correct, Yafet? You cannot. You can have certain parts of the website being anonymous, and then certain parts of the website requiring authentication. Right? It's an on-off switch. It's either yes or no. You can't have fine tuning. Yes. Ooh, JP is coming with his hacky tool. You can use a special authorization JSON file, but is that documented? Are we allowed to, are we encouraging people to use that?
It's documented on Stack Overflow because clearly that's where all the documentation is, right?
Java's like, damn, these guys.
I think there's I'm sure there's a way, and we've also seen a lot of people essentially do the EasyAuth flow, but do it locally, and so where they would upload a script or an ARM template. So we've seen that as well. And that, I guess, when we look at the new experience, we kind of look at it as it's easy for someone who may not have that experience or may not be going too far into the weeds as much. But I'm sure you should be able to.
Is this new feature something that people need to sign up for? I have Gover on Discord saying that his authentication blade looks very different. I think he's still using the legacy one, right? The previous.
Yeah. So you're probably using the classic the classic blade, and if you go to the blade now.
Okay.
If you go to the new blade, you should see a tab or a button that says upgrade. And so if you click that button, it will essentially automatically upgrade you to this this experience. And so you can start to manage your app through that experience.
Is it true that you can't go back to the previous experience once you do that?
You cannot return.
It's a one-way. Just be aware that if you switch it on. I mean, we want people to go to the new experience anyway because it's GA. But if you're in the new experience, it's my understanding you can go back. But if you create a new app service, you can then use that. You can use the old experience on that new app service.
Do you have to have a new app service for the new blade to work, or could I take an old app service before this was released and it still work?
That's a good
Yeah, so I
question.
think can I take an old app service and go to the new experience? Yes.
Okay, cool.
Smart Spring 1 is asking, is there a risk doing that with a live app?
Upgrading to the new experience.
I suspect switching on EasyAuth, is that what you're asking, Smart Spring? Or sorry, switching on the authentication experience. Can't say it, man. I like EasyAuth. Yes, upgrading.
I would.
Yeah. Oh, upgrading.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say I would recommend that. I mean, if you have any special or very specific settings or that you double check as you post upgrade. But I think if it's a basic scenario, it should be fine. But if there are specific settings that you may have for your app, then I would double check that as you do it. And if you try it and there's any concern or any feedback that you may have, like, please definitely use this button up here. Send us your feedback, and we take a good look at those pretty regularly. And now that this is GA, we want to, if we find any bugs, we want to iron them out as quick as possible. So getting your feedback is really key to this.
So that's a very good point that the Smart Spring is raising. Just a bit concerned about not being able to roll back. I suspect that even if you use slots, because the EasyAuth setting is at the application service layer level, then your slots will also inherit the same settings, which means that you cannot really test it on a slot only. It has to be across the whole app service. And therefore, if you are concerned about breaking something or not being able to roll back, I would say spin up a different app service to test the settings and that everything is working. And then once you're comfortable and confident, then you go back to your main live app and do the upgrades. Whoa, Bolt is coming with all the questions. So next question. It's awesome, but regarding the authentication rules, but what about role-based access?
So you should be able to do role-based access in the same blades. And so you should be able to go to the access control blade and grant access or role assignments accordingly. If that is what we're referring to, are you saying, or is the question more around?
I think it's more about role-based authorization within the application. So
okay.
Whether your app can get roles and information through EasyAuth.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are really two main ways. Like, we can do it at the Azure AD level with enterprise applications, right? Requiring assignment. We can require app role assignment, and if you're not in an app role, then Azure AD will just refuse to sign you in. You have to turn on app role assignment required for that. Yeah. But then the claims that EasyAuth gets, those are still accessible to the app, right? Like, there's still a way for us to get maybe not the raw token, but the claims that were in the token in the app via EasyAuth, right? So there's a URL, I believe. It's been a while since I did any EasyAuth, but there's a URL that you can hit inside of your app that will give you back the claims of the user.
You can get it in Kudu. So if you go to the Kudu portal, you can find it in the, I think it's in the environment settings.
Yeah,
that's where you can get that URL.
So so if I was going to do RBAC in an effort to keep it simple, like if I came here and turned this on and then wanted to enforce roles, I would likely go the enterprise app route, because I can just do it straight from the portal and say, you're in a role, you're not. And if you're in a role, you can pass through. And if you can't, you can't. And then, things like .NET are going to read, if you have to read the role claims, but things like .NET, you can use the authorized tags for. So, yeah.
Correct. So I have a question. when should people use this one or this experience over rolling, say, Azure Active Directory authentication with MSAL in their app? Or can we do both? Can we do a mix and match, and rather than choosing one or the other, we complement each other? What's the recommendation here for people new to easy auth and identity?
I would say it would depend very much on like the scenarios, like the identity scenarios you're trying to capture with your app, right? Easy auth is a good, easy way to basically a gateway to authenticate the users coming into your application. But if there is a more deeper scenario you're trying to get into where the functionality is much, I guess you're somewhat of a pro and you're trying to use other identity features, maybe going down the MSAL route would be much easier. So as you start off, maybe when you're trying to authenticate users, just only authenticating users coming into your site, easy auth would be perfect, right? As you get deeper into the scenario and you're trying to add several identity features, maybe MSAL would be more up your level, just because of the ability to modify modify how it works much more as opposed to ACL.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And so, I mean, it's a lot like for the .NET folks who might be familiar, it's like checking the authentication box in IIS on like an on-prem server, right? Like your app kind of doesn't have to know that this is happening. So it's sort of happening before requests ever make it to your app. And I think older stuff too, legacy stuff, or things that maybe the person who wrote it has retired, gone out of business, etc. If you've got a web app that's on-prem today and you want to move it up to Azure, this is a great way to sort of check a box and say, okay, don't let anybody in except for people who I allow, or make sure they authenticate before. I know we talked to some folks internally who are doing the same thing because they don't want to have to build auth into the app. They want to just check a box and say, okay, cool. If you don't have an account, you can't get in. And it's just perfect for that kind of stuff.
Yep. Somebody has a question. Webmonger. Okay, I'm getting better with reading these names. Okay, we had this question recently. Should we use APIM and EasyAuth for functions, or whether APIM to functions would do the work and do the work in the function? Oh, okay. That's a good question. Do we let the platform deal with the auth component, or do we use APIM to do the front door proxy stuff, and then EasyAuth handle the token validation in the code? Yafet, what would be your take in that solution?
That's a good question. I'm not as familiar with that scenario, so
okay.
I can't give my recommendation or my thought, but I'm not as familiar with that scenario, so I maybe I can follow up after.
Sure.
I think APIM is. I mean, APIM's going to have a whole lot of extra stuff, right? Like you've got caching and you've got subscription keys and products and all sorts of ways to slice and dice API access and pricing and how you want to charge people and how they can test stuff and whatever. And so, and APIM can also use Azure AD or OAuth to call the backend server. So,
correct.
As it's an Azure function and it's kind of sitting on the internet, I mean, there are ways to make them private, sure, but as it's sitting there, having Azure AD Auth as sort of or having EasyAuth there as sort of as a backstop is certainly helpful. And it also means that your decision to use APIM is not necessarily driven on the authentication bit, and it's more driven on do you need the caching, do you need the protection, do you need the the request and response manipulation that you get with something like APIM.
Yes.
For dev, for test, I tend to use functions directly, but if I'm going to put something in production, chances are I'll put something like APIM in front of it, because it also helps them to sort of version your APIs correctly and build the surface there, and then how you compose that surface from the individual APIs is completely abstracted from the callers, which is nice because it means you can be flexible in how you host your API, and APIM is your sort of always your front door. So I think if you were to go the route of APIM, you could always use EasyAuth in addition, and use that to secure your API directly, and then use the OAuth stuff in APIM to connect back to it. One other thing too would be how far downstream you want your identities to go. So do you want, take something like Microsoft Graph, right? The Graph composes APIs from dozens and dozens of different services, from like Exchange Online and SharePoint and OneDrive and Azure AD and a bunch of different things, right? And if I build my API surface there, do I want that identity to be used to talk to Graph and let Graph figure out what I'm allowed to see? Or do I want that token to pass all the way down to, say, the Exchange Online API that's going to be back, that Graph is ultimately going to call on my behalf? And typically, I don't want to say it's always the case, but in a lot of cases we see, especially in microservices and these sort of, composable APIs, typically we see a lot of folks dealing with the authorization at the API surface layer sort of right there at the edge, because your permissions may be composed of multiple APIs anyway. Being able to read my files, for example, in Graph, that might require 5 APIs to fulfill. And so do we want all 5 of our APIs to have to stay in sync with each other in terms of how they look at the user and what they do with the user? Or do we want to let something like Graph as the proxy handle it? And that's a big, that's not a question that we can say definitively yes or no, but it's certainly something to consider, is how you foresee the rest of your downstream dependencies handling the users, and if you want to do that yourself, or if you want the code to do it on their own. So
yeah, there are pros and cons with this approach, and depending on, I would say that from my experience, it all comes down to what are you going to do with the token claims inside your function. Is it more of I need to make sure that there's a valid token coming in, or do I need to have an access token and look into the token to get some information that will be vital for the flow of the function? In that case, EasyAuth probably is not going to help you. But they're both valid scenarios. I think both can be used in architecture depending on what you're doing. So the answer is it depends.
Yeah, Bolt's asking if.
Yeah, that's a good question.
What Bolt's asking is actually a really great question, which is less application auth in favor of more infrastructure auth. And I don't know. It's an interesting question, and I think you'll find people on both sides of that. You'll find people on both sides of that fence. People who believe that infrastructure auth is the future and that we should proxy everything, and that 20 years ago it's all a big circle, right? And then you'll have other folks who, I don't think it's ever going to be this. The one thing works for everybody, right? Like infrastructure auth is great if you're an administrator. It's great if you are a dev who doesn't want to deal with it and you just need to sort of deal with your front door. I think it is very much it's an app by app decision, and a lot of it depends on what you have to do. If you need to be looking at the tokens and digging through them and figuring out who is this user and where do they come from and what's their tenant ID and what sort of organization are they a member of, that sort of thing, I think you'll probably always still have to have some code that goes and does that, because all you're really going to do is, if you expect the provider to do it, then now we're going to go back to Yafet and say, hey, Yafet, we need like full code, extensibility and configuration for EasyAuth. And all we're doing is kicking our identity logic down from our app upstream into this proxy, right? And I think that's, it's a hard decision to make. And I think, can we foresee everything that you're going to need to do in code and give you a configuration knob for it? I don't know, right? Can we make it extensible enough that you can go write your code and let the container run it, let the proxy run it? I don't know. And so I don't know. I think there'll definitely be plenty of room for both.
Exactly. Yafet, what is the next step
Awesome.
for our audiences or our audience? Where do we want our developers to go? What's the next step? And how do they get hold of you if they have any problems?
Yeah. So
Questions. Might not be problem.
if you're going through this experience in real time and you have any feedback or you get stuck somewhere, definitely use this send us your feedback tab, and then you can tell us about your experience. We check this very frequently, so and we've already gotten some good feedback on some of the bugs that have been ironed out. So we definitely take a look at that. Otherwise, I guess I can share an email. I don't know how.
I mean, we've got in product feedback, right? So we've got the send us your feedback button up here. There's always Microsoft Q&A. So if you have issues, you can put them out there because we have teams of folks who go out there and figure it out. We got a short link to it if you're interested. You can always come and join us in Discord, and we'll make sure that it gets there. But you can go to aka.ms/425show/help, and this will get you to Microsoft Q&A. And of course, engineers are standing by waiting for your call, right? But in-product feedback is probably one of the best ways to get it back in. But please, however you need to get a hold of us, that's there are various avenues to do it. So
yeah, definitely go check it out. Would love to hear any feedback and any thoughts on the experience.
Cool.
We added the same link at the same time. Hey, Yafet, that was brilliant, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming over. Thanks for showing us the new experience. It's definitely cool to see where the new experience is headed, and the fact that we have a new UI there for our developers. And we look forward to having you on the stream again when you have something new to show us. Or when you're ready to do some Ruby and Perl PHP programming.
Yeah, those days are behind me.
That's fine. Everyone is saying thank you for joining us. Thanks everyone for the awesome questions. And we'll let Yafet go and do some important work while we continue to mess around now with Kotlin and Android and Azure AD B2C. Thanks, Yafet.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Steve, for that. So have a great weekend. All right.
Right, just the two of us and our friends.
So there are a couple things before we move on. There are two questions. One, staging slot. Since the app services, when you do a staging slot, it's a totally separate app. You can do it on one and not on the other because you're going to have two different URLs anyway. So you'll have, my app and then my app dash stage or whatever.
Also, you can set up VCO on the individual slot.
You can. Yep.
Oh, nice.
And then the second question was about B2C.
Yes.
And B2C is doable. It requires a little bit of domain knowledge.
We did a stream about this some time ago, right? Remember? Back in October?
Maybe vaguely remember. October. God, that feels like it was 400 years ago.
Yeah.
So if you are, if you want to use B2C, so the things like create a new registration and these things, these aren't available for you, sadly, but that's okay. What you can do is provide details of an existing app registration. You'll need an app ID, a client secret, and an issuer. And the key to the issuer is that the issuer will be a B2C. It will be your B2C issuer. So
hold up. Can you unshare your screen and restart it because the stream is frozen? We are okay, but your monitor is frozen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weird. Let's try again. Fixed. Okay. Oh, wait. I need to see. Yep, it's updated now. Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, that's weird.
Oh,
I don't know why that happened.
It's still frozen.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'll unshare my screen and share it again.
Yeah, I don't know. It's broken. What do you prefer for microservices APIs? Infrastructure auth or app auth? Hey, I'm a developer. I'm all for app auth. There are things that, there's no flexibility when you use infrastructure auth. So that's fixed, JP. Thanks, buddy.
Cool.
But,
okay.
Yeah, that's my take.
So let's go to B2C. I'm going to go find an app, and we'll just create. I'm going to really quickly create a new one, and we'll call this Easy Auth app. And it's going to be, I think, like, let's see, the name of this one is Anton Azure Websites.net. I think it's Auth AAD. I can't remember exactly what it is. We'll have to go back and look. But it's essentially the reply URL that comes out of Easy Auth, which we can always go back and look at. So let's register this app. And we'll need our application ID, so our client ID. That's going to go here, and application client ID. I'm glad they've synced those up. We're going to go create a new secret. So whatever, we'll call this Easy Auth, delete me, since it's going to be on here. We'll make it 3 months, just in case I forget. Although the whole thing shouldn't be, the whole thing will be visible. So we're going to create our secret.
Be visible. You're not scared.
We've got our secret. We drop that in there. And then our issuer URL, this is where things are going to get a little bit more creative.
Yep.
So the issuer URL is going to be driven by the user flow that you're using, right? So this could be a custom policy. It could be a regular policy. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to use one of the standard ones. Let's use this Suzy Rec one. So the fastest way to get to the data URL that you need is to come to your flow and click Run Now, and then you'll see this. So this, if we take this link, this is our OpenID configuration data. So if we go here, let's go put this in the browser, and we'll go take a look at what it looks like. And this has all the goop that you need to make this work, right? So there are a couple things. The issuer value here, if we were to try to use this issuer value will fail. And because this issuer value, if we take this and we try to put well-known blah, blah, blah after it, the well-known OpenID configuration, etc. If we try to put this after that issuer value without the P at the end, we're going to get a 404, right? So instead, we have to be a little bit more creative about it, and we actually have to change our user flow around a little bit. So we'll go back to our user flow, and we go to properties. And in here, we are going to change the issuer value.
The fact that you know that, it just scares me, but it's fine.
It's just a bunch of time of beating your head against the wall. I've gone through more brick walls than I have skulls.
Yeah,
so.
We need to document this. Maybe we'll do a blog post about Easy Auth with B2C, because I don't think it's a documented scenario.
So in our properties, properties for our user flow, so this is under properties for a specific flow, we've got token compatibility settings. And if we look, we have one that lets us change the issuer claim. And the big difference you'll see between these two is one of these doesn't mention the policy at all. This one does mention the policy, this B2C_1_Suzy_rec. This issuer claim will give us a policy specific issuer value that does have OpenID metadata after it, and the OpenID metadata is ultimately what this issuer is going to use to do that.
Very nice.
So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this. So this is going to be TFP, which stands for Trust Framework Policy. So we'll put TFP in our issuer URL. And then the other thing we're going to do is add our policy name in the URL itself. So this is our tenant ID, it's your tenant GUID. So we're going to put B2C_1_Suzy_rec.
Is this not what we do in the apps as well, right? Within our apps, is that not the same URL that we use in app configurations?
No, because you'd have to change this every time otherwise.
Oh, right.
And the thing is, like, that's the thing. So this says issuer URL. That's what it says here, right? The thing about it, however, is that this isn't actually just the issuer's URL. This is because issuer itself is just a value, right? The issuer is just a value in the claim. The problem is that what is in the spec and what these services are expecting to do is they're expecting to take this issuer URL, right, and append .wellknown/OpenID-configuration to this issuer URL to go fetch this metadata document. And by fetching this metadata document, it can configure itself. It knows, okay, this is the issuer. This is where I get the keys that I use to go and validate tokens. These are the kinds of responses that are supported. These are the kinds of claims or this kinds of scopes that I can ask for, et cetera, et cetera. So all this is done when you put this in here. A couple things have this problem. So app service is going to have this problem. You're going to have to change your thing. PlayFab auth is going to have this problem, and anything else that's expecting this metadata document when you do it is going to be a problem. So then the allowed token audiences value. The token audience is essentially the who the token is issued for, and generally speaking, in the case of B2C, that is your app ID. Mm-hmm. So what we'll do is we're going to run this app. We're going to run a test with jwt.ms, and we're going to go check what audience is coming back. The audience value should be our app's ID.
Yep.
I get signed in here to B2C. Oops.
So Sahil, while you're doing that, Sahil is asking, how can we do this with custom policy and change issuer, bold, provider response, which was you need to use policy variables to set the issuer to the correct format. But is there a hackier way to do this or a better way to do this?
You set the format in the policy. I mean, right. You ultimately have complete and utter control over how things get spit out of get spit out of custom policy. So yes. If you need a specific issuer value, then you spit out a specific issuer value.
Nice.
So we're going to put in our token audience of BF789, which is actually no, this is the incorrect one. This is not the right one because this is for a different app.
Yes.
So our application ID should be the same as our token audience. We're going to require authentication. We're going to 302 all of them, and let's go. So permissions, we can't do anything on that because it's not Azure AD, right? It's not traditional Azure AD. So we've added identity provider settings. Cool. So that all looks good. So now let's go back to our app and see what happens. So I'm just going to copy this URL. We'll take it over here. And Euler.
Oh.
I'm at b2clogin.com, which is great.
Does not recycle the app when you set it for the first time. Therefore, it might take a while to...
Well, it looks like it is taking us over to B2C. I'm probably in a redirect loop because, to be honest, I don't actually know what's running in that app service, and it might be something that we need. So if I go to, let's go here. So if we go to this website, it looks like we're getting redirected to B2C, which is great. Although, you know why? I don't have the correct reply URL in there. So let's go fix that because, like I said, I kind of wasn't sure what that was going to be to begin with, and it looks like the one that I had was a bit different. So let's do a URL decode. So there's a well-known endpoint, obviously not well-known enough to me. There's a well-known documented endpoint for EasyAuth, and it's .auth/login/AAD/callback. This URL is going to be whatever your URL is. Now, it could also be your custom domain if you have a custom domain in your web app. Yeah. So this is where Azure AD is going to send the token back, and so because of that, we need to go to our app registration and update that. So let's go back to our app. Too zoomed here. Back to our app registration. I think we called this EasyAuth something. Yeah, EasyAuth app. And under authentication, we're going to get rid of this one, and we're going to put this one in. So there's our thing. Everything looks good. Good. We'll save that up. And now we should be squared away. So let's go back and try our app again. So Anton.azurewebsites.net. I made a website with my buddy, and thus had to I put his name after it
to make him happy.
Yep. Okay, so we saved this. That looks like it got saved. We'll give it a refresh just to make sure. Give it a second to update, and I'll close this window just so we don't. We're definitely in a redirect loop, but let's see if that's just a.
I saw that.
See where that problem is.
Blessing.
Okay, we should be good now. I think.
Hit it.
Should be all squared away. So let's hit our website and let's see what is going on. I'm going to hit my F12 here. So we keep on getting authorized. Okay. So I'm going to stop this and see what's happening. So in our authorize that we get, We're going response type code ID token, which is what it does by default, which is hybrid flow, which isn't the best thing in the world. So that would lead me to believe we probably need to turn on implicit flow for this. That is most likely the problem that we are getting.
Yeah.
So we're getting a
Do
redirect.
you need to set a custom token? Sorry, custom property just to get the token back? Do we need to have an API permission, a dummy API permission, just to get the data back?
Well, we don't. I don't know if EasyAuth is going to require a. I don't know if EasyAuth is going to require an app. I think that's an MSAL bug specifically.
Okay.
So let's enable ID token for this.
With a heavy heart, JP just press the button there.
Trust me, I don't like this any more than you do. This hurts. This pains me to click this button as much as everybody else.
Yes, Bolt. It pains us.
Again,
that's true.
Here's the thing: if you're doing EasyAuth.
Oh no, we lost Bolt. He's out.
Oh no.
No. He's like implicit. I'm out.
I know.
Hey,
I told you, Bolt. I don't.
We don't make the rules.
They give us a product and they say, "Can you guys go and see if this works?" And we're like, "Yeah, let's go look." Okay. All right. Good. So let me close this. Let me close this private window. We'll get a fresh one. So we've enabled implicit. Sadly, we have the correct thing, I believe. Auth login AAD callback. So let's get a new private window. Let's try to go to my app and let's see what we get. Oh, interesting. So this is taking me to B2C, but it's redirected me back and telling me I don't have permission. So let's see what happened.
Ooh,
probably something else.
Admin consent on your permissions? Oh, you don't have permission to sign in?
Here we go.
What?
So the provided application is not configured to allow the OAuth implicit flow. So it's actually looking for an access token, even though it's not requesting one. So we're going to come in here. We're going to also check access token, even though we're not requesting one. And we're going to come back here and we shall do it again. So again, if you're interested in B2C and EasyAuth, here you go.
This is what you have to go through. Oh, what is happening?
So let's see what it's doing here. So
one step at a time, folks. We'll get there.
We are in a private window. Okay. So we've got our authorize. So our authorize happened. And then let's see. We were sent back with, okay, so all that looks good. So then in our callback, we got a 401. It says the provided app is not configured to allow OAuth implicit. Did I not wait long enough? Maybe I didn't wait long enough. Or maybe I didn't.
Surely it doesn't take that long, doesn't it?
Now this could also be the same bug that we've seen with other parts of B2C. So I'm going to give it a minute, make sure that things make sure everything persisted. But if it didn't,
we need to create a custom permission and admin consent that so it will work.
Yep. So let's see what. So it's requesting OpenID profile and email. So those should be okay. That's essentially just a sign in. Yep. So that's just OpenID Connect. We should get an ID token back. Maybe the fact that we're not getting a code is what's causing this to blow up, which we can go fix. So let's go look. Let's go look at our configuration one more time and see if there's anything that we can do to override this. Edit. Okay. Token stores there. Allowed external redirect URLs. Okay. Require authentication. That all looks good. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot here. We'll save this. Okay. So.
Oh, snap. Bolt is coming with all the punches today. It sounds like we need to rename this channel to the Cowboy Show.
Why is that? There we go. Okay, it finally stuck. Okay.
Take it back, Bolt. I mean, just because we had to use implicit does not mean it was our choice. Damn it.
Okay, so let's go back. So let's go back to our app. Oh no, I didn't mean to close my whole thing. So let's go back to our app.
Anton.
Anton's watching like, why do they keep talking about me?
I am surprised you didn't put Anton first. Anton JPDA.
Well, I try to prepend everything with my own stuff or with my own name. Anyway, okay. So we're going to try to go back to the Anton website. We get redirected to B2C, which is fantastic, which is good. This is sort of the first big step in making this work. Mm-hmm. And then now I don't know what app is actually running in here. So we may be in a position where it doesn't work because we get to the app and the app's like, I don't know who you are. And then it blows up. But I did sign in.
What happened?
I did sign in successfully, which is great.
Redirect URI doesn't work. Doesn't work.
No, it's. Yeah, there it is. So now I'm signed in.
What? We're in.
Yep.
There you go.
And we're in. Yep. Now,
the Cowboy Show that solves all the problems. That's for you, Bolt.
If we wanted to do more with that identity, there's a specific URL that we can hit in our code.
Oh, by the way, Microsoft Identity.web works with EasyAuth, so now you can actually use Microsoft Identity.web with EasyAuth in your app if you want to do stuff. Or you can go the route that JP is going to talk to us now. Go for it.
So the other thing that you can do if you need the user's claims, so we will send them in a header, right?
Yep.
So you'll get them in the header in the remote user variable, depending on the language that you're using. And there's also a
secret URL.
A URL that you can hit. Well, it's in here, so it's not super secret. But it's,
you have to know that there is a URL. I mean, just that means
it's literally documented, but it's okay. It's still secret because our docs are essentially opaque anyway, right? So we've got so when you want to access user claims, you'll get these headers: client principal name, client principal ID. If you want to get the user's data, you call this. You call auth.auth/me, and then that will go out and get you the claim set. So you can go and look at the claim set and do different things with it. And then, of course, you can also get tokens to go call your downstream services.
So is it root of your web app URL plus that, or is it the root plus your app name and that?
It is your app name, like whatever your root, whatever. So jpda-anton.azurewebsites.net /.auth/me.
Nice.
Where's my other window? Sorry, where's my private window with the Anton app in it? Did I close it?
I think you closed it.
Well, let's go back to it. jpda-anton azurewebsites.net. We should be prompted to sign in, and we are. Oops. So we're at B2C where we get signed in. And then I believe if we just do it here, .auth/me, now we see, here's my ID token. Here are the claims that were in that ID token. So just a typical thing you would expect from a B2C token, things like extension attributes that you might include, my emails, the trust framework policy, like the user flow that I use to sign in with, this other extension property and value. So so this is how you get them. And of course you also get the raw ID token. And had we requested an access token, we would also be able to get that in here.
As long as you add it to the claims in your in your claims attributes or application attributes. Right now, I know you're super excited about EasyAuth, and I can see it in your face. But should we stop and switch to Kotlin, because Sahil will be like, these guys promised me Kotlin, and I don't see Kotlin yet. And we have an hour left, so I want to make sure that we have enough time to actually run our app and authenticate with B2C in Kotlin.
So let's go chase the Kotlin path down. So we're going to switch gears for a minute. Just take a quick gear shift, and let's go do some Kotlin. So close some of these windows since we don't need all these things. Close.
And we'll try to document this experience, by the way. So if you want to do EasyAuth with B2C, then we'll probably try to put a blog post out there to show you how to do it.
So if you want to do Kotlin with B2C, we have a
sample.
We have a 2.5 or 2-year-old sample that you can go look at. which is out at MS Identity Android Kotlin. Okay. Now there is a newer one that is a Java one, but we're going to start from here so that anyone who's watching the next hour is going to be able to go pull this code, make the requisite changes, and make it work with their B2C. Okay.
And we'll put a sample on the 45 GitHub repo. So if you want to find the latest version and you don't have to go through the experience, then you can use that. And so then we'll go back to the docs team and we'll try to update this sample as well.
So we're going to fork this to 425 show.
Fork it.
So we're going to fork it over to 425 show, and then we'll make our changes there.
Yes.
Okay. So now we've got our 425 show, MS Identity Android Kotlin. Let's go grab this URL, and let's get to work. So I'm in my main sort of Git folder here. Let's see. Let's do a clone.
You need .git at the end, don't you? What?
Nope. And let's get into MS Identity Android Kotlin. So this is our thing. Now, I have Android Studio, which is what we're going to use today. Android Studio, the thing I love about it is that you can just download the zip file and extract it. So that's what I've done. All I've done is download the zip file for Android Studio, which you can get from Google, or I think you can even get it from JetBrains now too. And I've got a JRE that's in a folder because I'm certainly not going to install Java on this machine. So we're going to run Studio 64, which is our Android Studio.
Sahil is excited. So Sahil, this is all for you, buddy, as we promised. And for Bolt, who says, I love how GitHub makes it easy to steal other people's repos. We're not stealing. We are borrowing. We'll return it back. We promise. It's just for the demo today, right? We'll give it.
Oh no! I mean, hey, we're happy to leave it as is if you want it. If you want the same thing, if you want it, we're happy to leave it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's. So we're in Android Studio. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger so it'll be easier to read.
Oh yeah, we had to do that before. And by the way, joke aside, being able to fork repos and create solutions, standing on the shoulders of giants. God damn, I can never say that properly. Shoulders of giants. Other people have written a lot of software, so you don't have to start from scratch. Just use what's out there and build your own solutions around them. Back to you, JP.
Okay.
Open source run is over.
So we have so we're going to terminate all this stuff because this, I think, is pulling from a different folder that we had from yesterday, and I don't even know what it's doing. Okay, so let's. Oh, look, you know what? I think it's in the same folder, but let's open an existing project. DMSI Identity Android Kotlin. There it is. Cool. Let's open it. I think I already had it open, but whatever. All right, so let's just load up.
Install, run the exe, and you got Studio. Open the project in there and have some fun.
Make for a very quiet stream. What does that mean?
So Bolt was saying, maybe I should use all my channel points to mute JP for the rest of the stream. And I said, it will make for a very quiet stream since JP is driving today.
I don't have...
oh yeah,
you'll notice our layout is a little bit different. And thus...
we can do this.
We don't have the... Thus, we don't have the bot running yet. But the bot will come, but I don't think the bot will mute us. At least not anytime soon. Okay. What happened to our screen? What happened to my screen?
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, you took me out of it. I'm just playing with the layout. Right. I think this one's better.
So we've got our app. So if we've got our app, so this is exactly what we've cloned. So the first thing we're going to go look at is we need to go make a few configuration changes. So if we look in in our raw folder in res, we're just going to deal with the single account one for right now. So let's get this zoomed in a little bit. Now, this file, this auth config single account JSON, this is documented, but it's not in an obvious place. So we have to make a few changes to this one.
Do you have a link to that documented files doc?
I don't. I don't know where it is. I can go look for it. I don't know. I don't know where it is off the top of my head.
Okay.
So instead, we have to change our authority. So our authority type, it's actually kind of interesting. We just went through EasyAuth because we're basically going to do kind of just what we did with EasyAuth, where we're going to sort of trick the thing into thinking, oh, there's an issuer I should go and use. So I'm going to pull up. I've got some other code here. I'm going to pull this up just so that I'm not missing anything because we kind of ran through a bunch of. We beat our faces against the wall for quite a while yesterday.
Yes.
Obstacles. Great way to put it.
Hurdles.
Hurdles. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So let me get my specific syntax here that we need for this. If I can find it, since seemingly cannot seem to find it now. There it is. So in our auth config single account, what we're going to do. Oh wait, I'm in the wrong project. Hang on just a second.
And for those that are watching the stream on YouTube, we'll probably have the links below so you can get started and find those changes. So.
Okay, here we go. I knew we'd get there eventually. So if we look at our single account, we're going to change this authorities block. So this authorities block has things like tenant ID and what kind of apps you're going to use. We're not going to use that. We're going to use this instead for B2C.
Very nice.
So for B2C, what we're saying is the authority, which is the B2C directory we're going to use, is my directory. But then we're also saying we want you to use this. You're going to have to use this too. You're going to use this B2C _1.
With this B2C, you always need to provide one, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, because without a user flow, you're not authenticating through B2C.
Yep.
This is the first thing we have to do, which happens in an auth config single account.json.
That's only for signing in, right? This is not for, say, for example, if you want to reset your account or if you want to edit your profile.
Correct. So this flow is just for me to sign in and get access tokens for services. It does not have anything to do with alternates like resetting password, etc. So that's not going to be there. Okay. So we made our changes in auth config single account.json. That's the only change that we have to make there. So let's go into the app itself. And we're going to go look at the single account mode fragment. And then we need to get to the XML. So first, actually, let's just run this. I'll make sure my emulator's up and running and we don't have to deal with any drama.
Your authority is way broken there. Because it's running to B2C. Okay, sorry. Did I still get thunder by explaining why?
We'll get there, though. We'll get there. Okay. So here's the app. Let's clear all the existing data from this app so we don't have to deal with anything left over. In fact, we'll just uninstall it. Yep. So the app is gone, not on the device anymore. So that's good. So we're all good there. And let's go do it's still building. So I guess we'll give it a second.
No. Or did you screw things up because it was trying to deploy and you killed that app or something?
I don't know. It's still cruising, so we're gonna let it cruise. Gradle build is running. Okay, keep on going. Let's go. Come on.
And for those that are not initiated in Kotlin, Gradle is like MS build and NuGet at the same time. So Sahil is saying, we use a custom policy which has Azure AD as IDP, but token to Android app will be received via B2C. Yeah, that's the expected flow. Will it work with Azure AD IDP fed with B2C? Well, since you're going through B2C, right? It's
B2C, your app knows nothing of the upstream identity provider. The only thing it knows is if you choose to include a claim that says, upstream IDP or IDP, the app itself knows nothing about how you authenticated. All it knows is that it got a token. It could verify the signature came from a known endpoint, which is your B2C, because B2C is the thing that ultimately signs that. So B2C consumes your upstream token. It consumes your login token from Azure AD, Facebook, Twitter, whoever, and then reissues its own. And so your code only needs to understand B2C. Exactly. If you're doing other things where you want to say sign a user in with Azure AD through B2C and then call an API, call something like Graph for that user, that's MSAL is not really going to help you there because you're going to get an access token. Then that access token is going to flow through the policy, and then away we go. So there's not going to be MSAL isn't going to do anything except for interact with B2C. If you make a call to graph with an upstream provider's token from your AAD login, that's going to happen just as an HTTP request. Like you're just going to make that request and tag that thing on the top. Okay. So if we run the app, let's run it. Here's our emulator. Okay. So it's been reinstalled. So all of that this is exactly what the app's going to show you. This is going to break because our configuration is not such that this would work, right? So if we were to try to sign in, our sign in should take us to the correct sign in page, but all of this is going to be broken, right? So like this client ID isn't correct, and there's a bunch of other stuff in here that's not correct, right? But we are getting to B2C, which is a good first start, right?
Yep.
So we do need to go and change our client ID. So let me get my B2C portal up here. Let's go to B2C. We're going to go find our app registration. If you do not change the name of the app, you can use the hash that we have in the sample, which is what I'm going to do because I don't want to have to figure out how to sign the app and do all that drama to go and run it. So let's go to our app registrations, and we're going to find. Did we call it Kotlin? There it is, Kotlin Android. So here's our app registration. Under authentication, I'm using the same package name that it comes with, com.azuresamples.msal Android Kotlin app. The signature hash stays the same. The redirect URI stays the same. I do have a new client ID, and we're going to have to get our client ID into our app. So we're going to copy that value, and then that client ID is going to go back in this auth config single account.json. So we're going to change our client ID up here. So that's got our new one. So this is your B2C app registration ID.
Lovely.
Okay. Can I not use whack? Oh, this is JSON. Never mind. Can't use We have our app ID in here because our redirect, because we're using the samples hash and the samples name. We don't have to change our redirect URI. The account mode is single is fine because there's no sort of multi-tenant concept over there, so that's fine. So we're going to close that, and when we come into the single account mode fragment, the first thing you'll notice is that there's an authority hard coded up here. I have no idea why the authority is hard-coded, to be quite honest. I don't know why it would be, because this authority is essentially, for starters, it's in the configuration, but this authority is essentially Azure AD multi-tenant only. So this is only Azure AD, doesn't have anything to do with B2C. So instead, we need to essentially take the same authority value, and we're going to put that here instead. So this is now our B2C authority. This is our B2C authority. Include the user flow or policy ID. Okay, and I know Sahil, we'll switch to a custom policy here in a minute. So we've updated our authority, right? About the only other thing we need to do is go look at the version of MSAL that we are using.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go try to call some. We're going to go set up some stuff to try to call an API. So in our single account fragment, we've made our change here. The thing I have to remember is, how do we get to the activities? Here we go. So in our res layout, we've got our fragment single account mode.xml. And this is the thing that makes our layout, right? So in here, this is where we've got things like graph and all that sort of stuff that's already pre-filled. I don't want to type that every time because that's annoying. So instead, I'm just going to make some changes here. So this is MSGraph resource URL. Let's change that to API URL. Our API that we're going to call is one that we haven't talked about yet, but we're going to make it pretty simple. We're going to call saywhat.azure website.
Yeah, I love it. Say what?
.net/who. So this is just like this essentially will parse a JWT and echo it back. So this is what we should expect from this, is just to see what's in the access token that we get back. So we got to go configure that.
This is only for development.
And-
Do not mess with your access tokens, please.
Yeah. So the other thing is we need the scope that we're going to be requesting. So let's go search for scope. So the scope that we have by default in the app is user.read. We don't want to use user.read because there is no user.read in our thing. So instead, we're going to put in our own scope.
Well,
And
B2C doesn't have graph, in case people are confused about why we're removing it. Yeah.
It does have graph, but it's not user accessible, which is probably the best way to define it.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right. That is the whole point.
So then we have API permissions. And so for our API permission, we're going to add our API that we're going to call, right?
Yes.
So we created this scope.
Mm-hmm.
This is the scope of the API that we need to call. If you're not familiar with creating scopes in B2C, I know we've got a few other videos on it, but essentially inside of your app registration of your API, you'll have expose an API, and here is where you define a scope. So once we've defined the scope in our API, our other client apps can go and use that scope. So we add a permission, my APIs, and then we'll see our API in here for us to choose. I can't remember what we called that one, but
so in Azure AD, you don't have to declare those scopes in your client apps. You can request them via MSAL, but for B2C, it's different, right?
Yeah, for B2C, there's no concept of consent, and well, there's no concept of user consent, and so because of that, if you request these APIs, if you request the scope, like if we were to request this access scope, for example, if we request this scope and we haven't consented to it in the as an administrator in here, we won't get it, meaning we won't get an access token. So it's very important, especially when you're calling your own APIs, it's very important to make sure that you hit this access or that you hit the admin consent button. And even though there is no user consent per se, it still has to be admin consented, and you'll notice it's happened once this little green checkbox shows up. And you can click it as many times as you want. It just resets it, right?
Hit it.
So what we're saying here is that when a user signs in with the Kotlin Android app, when that user signs in, we want access. We want two things. We want OpenID and offline access. So that's to sign the user in. And we also want an access token to call this API, the B2C Auth admin API. We want a token to call that API with this specific scope.
Yep.
So this gets us an ID token. The Microsoft Graph stuff here at the bottom gets us an ID token. Access gets us an access token.
Now, there is a bug that we discussed about before, right? The fact that in some cases you need to have a dummy API permission only for your app to sign you in. Is that correct?
In certain .NET versions, that's correct. With MSAL, that's correct.
Okay. Good.
So we don't have to worry about that today because we are requesting an access token because we have to call our API because it's a mobile app, and also because we're not .NET. So
we never said bug solved,
right?
We said a feature. It's an idiosyncrasy of the system.
Yeah,
it's a pattern.
So we need the scope value because this is the scope that we're going to request. I'm just going to grab this and copy it, and we're going to put that in as the default text in this app for the scope because I don't want to type it every time.
I mean, technically, you don't have to expose it, right? I mean, technically, it would be hidden behind the scenes, so you'll be pressing a button to say, "Go and get me the data from the API." So this is only for demo purposes, I guess, and for making it visible.
Yeah, this is the sample app, and the sample app just says, hey, if you're going to, instead of hard coding these somewhere, we're just going to say, put them in a text box and you can type in what you need, right?
So Sahil is asking, why do I need an access token if I just want to authenticate my app in my app and I don't want to call an API? You don't need an access token.
So I would ask what a mobile app does that does not talk to an API, for starters. Just in that, the mobile app, unless it's a game or something, but even those, I guess, call a bunch of APIs. But
true,
most mobile apps are going to have to call an API, and so you're going to need an access token for it. However, in .NET, and in which we're not in today, in .NET, there is a bug today where when you sign into a web app, if you do not have a dummy access token, or if no access token is returned, it causes the library to stop working, causes it to blow up and throw an exception because the access token is empty. Mm-hmm. It's a bug and they're working on it. But the workaround for now is to add a dummy scope to your app and request that at sign-in. But again, only when you're doing like a .NET web app. The workaround is to add this dummy scope and request it, and that way the access token value is not empty. Even though you don't use the access token, you may not be calling an API. The library is expecting that. Is really the sort of the net, right?
Yep.
Right. Okay. So we're going to put this in because we are going to call our API and we're going to see what gets sent back. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So
we change the button names down there because they're graph or whatever it is. Do we change them? No, further down, isn't it? Get graph data or something like that.
I guess I don't actually know. Well, yeah. Here we go. Get API. I don't know why everything's capitalized like this. It's awful. Get API data and get graph data, get API data silently.
Yep.
So we're going to clean those up. So now let's run this one more time and see what we get. Now we haven't updated the library, so we're still in a really old version of the library, but we're going to come back around and get to that.
1.x, and I think current version is 2.x, so we'll do that as part of this demo.
So we're going to run this app again. So we're going to let it build, and we're going to run it again.
So there are two things left to do on today's stream, right? One is update the library to be the latest, and then the second one would be to use a custom policy. Is that correct?
Yep. So we've got our scope listed, so that's good. So our UI changes worked, which is great. Mm-hmm. This is the API that we're going to call, and all it's going to do is echo back our stuff. So let's go sign in, and let's see if we can't get signed in to start. So we'll sign in. Okay.
That's good.
And so we're at our B2C login page, which is great. So that worked better than expected. Now we're going to sign in. Let's see what happens when we come back to our app.
Oh, snap.
Now, okay. So we got a JSON parsing error, but it does look like we got a lot of the data back.
Yeah.
So this is the data. In fact, if we want, we can go call this, and we'll just, I guess we can't because I don't have the token that this thing used. But oh no, what did I click? Clicked the wrong thing. But you'll notice the data down here is the claim data that we sent into that service, right?
Yep.
So we see the policy that we used, we see the expiration, not before, etc. Right? So so that works. So we've called our API. Our API has, with an access token, the API has looked at our access token data and said, okay, cool, this is what's going on. There's some JSON parsing drama, but whatever. We are getting the data back from our service, which is great. So two more things to do, like you just said. We're going to switch to a custom policy for one, and we are also going to switch to the newest version of MSAL because this is using the older version. And on mobile, there's all sorts of drama around system browser or not system browser or built-in browser or broker or whatever. And so we want to make sure that we're on the latest one. So let's go look at our build scripts. And our build scripts have I think our build scripts are probably where we're going to end up doing, where we kind of have to do the most changes, right? Because there's a bunch of stuff in here that's just not entirely super clean, right? So let's pull up our Gradle scripts. If I can find where I put them. Where are my Gradle scripts? Here we go. So
this is the user signed in with the ID token. Yes, Sahil, the user is signed in with the ID token. That's the whole point.
Yeah, so the user signed in with the ID token. Signed in is sort of a relative thing here, because signed in really means that we've got an ID token. It was validated that it came from the correct issuer, and then we're using the access token to go make a service call or whatever. So remember, of course, that your client apps can always be decompiled, and so anybody can anybody can go and decompile your apps. And so you don't really want to make really any authorization decisions based on the ID token.
Yes.
It's useful for showing you who the user is. It's useful to know that they signed in. It's useful for telling some other service who they might be, in addition to the access token that's used to call that service. But the vast majority of the authorization, like the actual authorization, is going to happen in whatever the downstream API is, because it's essentially unenforceable on a mobile device, because I could pull the APK and decompile it and see whatever it is that you don't want me to see, and that's trivial to do. Same with iOS, same with whatever. So the ID token has a significantly lower significance here than it does with, say, a mobile app or with a web app, because in the web app, that may be all you need to authenticate the user, especially if it's a server-side app, because then it's going into doing other things. In a mobile app, in a browser-based app, it's a totally different story, because mobile and browser-based apps are running on essentially untrusted hardware. It's running on your user's device, and you can't trust their device at all. You can't trust that they're not running, and maybe your user isn't malicious, but their hardware is. They've been compromised by whatever, and so because of that, we can't trust that hardware at all. So the ID token tends to be a little bit less important than it would be in a web app. Okay, so if we look at our build scripts, you'll notice there's some fairly specific URLs for where our stuff is, which is all sort of development-based stuff, and we don't really want any of that. So
no, I
still
don't know why this is in the sample. That is very weird to me. It seems that somebody was building it on the local machine and then just dumped it into the samples. So we can remove it, right?
Yeah, so we're going to get rid of all this. I mean, I'm sure it's helpful if you're building the stuff, but whatever. So we're going to get rid of this, and I'm going to replace it with the I don't know why this is, but for some reason the Duo SDK is where we can find Intel.
Yeah.
So the Duo SDK is where that is. And then the other thing we need to do is, in our module build, we need to go make this change as well. You'll notice, of course, there's still a bunch of extra goop in here as well. So we need to change. We need to make our Maven change here, and we'll just do Maven Central. We'll do Google. So we're going to make our changes here. So we got Maven Central, Google, Maven Local, and then we've got packages dev azure.com, which is the Duo SDK. We've got our Maven feed here. Now, the other thing we need to do is we need to update the version that we're going to use of IMSAL. So we're going to get rid of all of the, if you're doing local dev with IMSAL, blah, 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 we're going to get rid of all that because we don't need it.
Yep.
And instead, we are going to use IMSAL
2.plus, right?
Yep, we're going to do IMSAL 2. Now, the current one is 2.0.10. You can, of course, always sticky to a specific one. 2.0.10 is the latest one. We're just going to use 2.plus to go get the latest one, whatever that might be. Now, this will blow up. If you're following along with us.
Do you get a prompt?
If you're following along with us, this will likely not build.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to run it again. And it's going to pull. So we did the Gradle sync. It's going to go pull everything to start building. So we're running the build now.
Caparino is asking, what is this Maven? So Maven is the NuGet package manager the package manager for Android and Kotlin. And apparently there needs to be a match between library versions and Maven, or you should always have the latest Maven anyway. This project is 2.5 years old, so it has a very old version of Gradle, and therefore it's breaking when we try to build things. That's what JP is trying to do.
And this is the error you will get if you try to run this. So the error down here is that I can't zoom this thing.
You don't have zoom it? Just use Windows Zoom.
Okay.
Windows Plus. There you go.
So you'll get this manifest merger fail, right?
Yeah.
So this manifests. This will fail, and it's because there's a certain key missing, and it's because our version of Gradle is out of date for this project. So we've got to go. Update. We have to go update a few things now. Okay, So now we're back. So now we got to go update. We've got to go get updated. Now this is one of the things that we sort of went in circles on yesterday. Is like, why isn't this working, right?
Yeah.
So this was where we figured out that there's a later version that doesn't require that change or doesn't require that the specific key value that we were looking for, and so we need to go and update it. So
I think up to version 1.4 of MSAL, it was working okay, and then you had to upgrade your Gradles, and it makes sense to have the latest tooling anyway. So please always update your packages. Don't be afraid to do that. If you don't do that, you have security issues, and it's part of the OWASP top 10 best practices, as a matter of fact.
So yeah, the problem is whenever you upload your packages, you spend a whole day trying to fix everything that breaks.
You do, but it is better.
Especially in our case, MSAL had a point update, went from 1.4 to 1.5 and broke everything. So
yeah,
that's okay because we're on 2 now. So we're going to upgrade to 4.1.3 of Gradle. So this is in our build.gradle for the whole project. So we're going to upgrade that here. And now, in theory, I don't want to say 100%. In theory, we should be good to go. So let's run this. We'll do a sync again. And now, ideally, we start working, unless I missed a step somewhere, unless I missed where another change that we had to make somewhere else. Let's see. Minimum supported Gradle is 6.5. The current version is 5.1.1. Oh yeah. So let me see if I can zoom this in. So we've got I did forget to fix the Gradle settings. So we've got Kotlin 1.3.3.1. We've got our package. That's all good. Mm-hmm. We've got our 4.1.3 here. We've got.
No, I don't want that.
That all looks okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. Is there anywhere else that I need to find? So this is in our main one.
Yeah.
We've got, okay, so that's all good. That all looks okay. Mm-hmm. And then we've got our build.gradle. We go pull this one up for our other one. If it's not obvious, I don't do a whole lot of JavaScript, or Kotlin for that matter. So this all looks okay. So we've got our new URL here, and
Gradle wrapper and import project. Interesting.
So our Gradle wrapper properties. Let's see. Let me check the version. Yeah, this is our version. This is where. So this is where we need to change this to 6.5 bin. So let's do 6.5 bin. That is the latest one. So let's do this. We'll do a sync. Sync. Come on. You can do it.
You can do it. Gradle builds. And I think that's the changes that we need to do to get Gradle and MSAL updated, and then it's custom policy.
Yep, and then we'll go hook up a custom policy and see where we go from there.
Configuring project, we're cooking. We're cooking now. Happening.
All right, so it's building.
Yeah.
Zoom this in down here a little bit. So we're further along than we were before, which is good.
Oh, yeah.
We're all up to date. We've got MSAL 2. Build successful. Cool.
Oh, check this out.
So let's run this. Let's go run this app again.
Oh, what is it?
Here's our Android emulator.
The specified Android SDK build is ignored?
I probably have to update my tools.
You're using an old version, right?
So this is building, still building, which is great.
Give it some time.
Okay. So that's still going, and then we'll be out. So while this is building, okay, there we go. We'll terminate the one that's running in the emulator because we're going to push a new one. So we'll terminate that. Now we got a new version running, which is great. The cache is still there. So let's try a get API. Let's see if we can't get the API data and see if we actually get it. And we do. So our tokens and refresh tokens are cached on device, which is great.
Latest
and
greatest.
We can go and get the we can go and get the data from there.
Is
So the last thing we'll do.
Is it still throwing a parsing error? Do we need to fix that?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just a JSON parsing error. I'm sure there's something I didn't encode correctly or whatever. I mean, this isn't going to call my APIs anyway.
True.
Okay, let's go switch this to a custom policy.
Yes.
And see if it still works.
Yes.
Because while I haven't changed most of my custom policy. I haven't changed a whole lot of my like custom policy
settings
like in terms of the issuers that are listed. Let's go grab this one and see. So B2C 1A, sign up, sign in. I do need to make sure that this one actually is still working before I.
That's a good point.
This one that I can actually log into it before we do it, because some of these have conditional access and stuff turned on them, and I don't want to, and I can end up breaking myself very badly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So let's go test this flow, make sure everything is still okay. And yeah, it didn't, because there's it's expecting something that is not there. Let's try our Suzy one. Do I have one that is not hooked up to an API? This might be my undoing here, is that I don't have one that I know 100%.
You don't have a simple one, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, these have a bunch of rules and stuff in them, so maybe the HRD one's working. Let's go there instead. So we'll do jbt.ms. Okay. Sign in. With the correct tab order, you might notice.
Are you using my code?
Since that's what's in our UI. No, it's something different, but it's essentially the same thing.
I'm a bit disappointed.
Okay, so we can sign in. We can sign in with this policy. So let's take this policy, which is our HRD sign up, sign in. Let's take this policy and let's go change our
settings.
Let's change our settings to use that. So in our auth config single account, I don't know why I have to zoom this in every time. That seems kind of silly, but whatever. We're going to use our 1A one, which is our custom policy. Mm-hmm. And we also need to change our authority here, because for whatever reason in this sample, the authority is here twice. It's in code and not pulled out of the config, whatever. So let's see, are we closed here? Yep. So let's run this again now with our new custom policy and see if we still work.
Of course it will work. I have all the confidence in you.
So one of the differences could be that so we're going to sign out. So we're going to have to sign back in. So we've signed out. Sign out really just means clear your local cache, because all you're going to do is throw out the tokens that you got. So let's try to sign in. So here's our flow, our new flow.
Custom policy here. Yeah.
Our custom policy. And if we look at, I wish there's a way to see the URL. Maybe here. Yeah. So you'll notice in the URL, we're using B2C 1A HRD sign up, sign in.
Yeah.
So, home realm discovery. So we'll do a sign in here, and ideally we get our data back, and we do. So same scope. In fact, because I've got different claim names in here, the signed in user actually shows up.
Yeah, it did work.
Yeah, because I have the claim name mapped correctly. But so you'll notice we called our API, and the claim data that was sent to the API got sent back. So we can call our API successfully. We have our token. We can get our API data silently. We can close the app, and we can reopen the app, and our cache will still persist along with our refresh token. So when we run this the next time, we're already signed in. I don't have to sign in again. If we go get our API data is there. If we want to do it interactively, that's going to force us to reopen a browser. But since we're already signed in, and because B2C doesn't have incremental consent as we would in Azure AD, we don't really have to worry about that either.
Yeah, it's a weird flash. Do you? So now you have two separate buttons. Would it be a way for doing the standard MSOL thing where you say, get me the token, it will try to do it silently, then if it fails, it will do the interactive one? Is that because now we have two separate buttons, which doesn't make any sense. If you were to call your API, you would have one button say get data, and you would expect for the code to handle whether it's interactive or silent. Can you do that?
Yeah, I mean it's in fact it does it when it starts up. So you follow the same pattern that you would use otherwise. So try to do an acquire token silent. If acquire token silent does not work,
Yep.
go do an acquire token interactive. Because this is calling APIs, this is trying to go get an access token, which is acquire token. Let's see, where is that happening? Is that in the graph wrapper, perhaps? Let's see where that's happening. No, so this is sending in an access token. That's not what we want. This must be happening somewhere in here.
Yep.
So
There you go. Silently and interactively, I think.
So this is our
call.
sign out.
Yeah.
It's our sign out callback.
There.
And then here we go. So this is doing our acquire token silent directly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a callback that happens afterward.
So if you were to call this one, I mean, it's B2C, so I think it's going to work anyway. But would that not throw an exception if there was nothing in the cache? Would the
get off silent? So acquire token silent will throw an exception if there's nothing in the cache. Correct. So if there's no user there, then if there's nothing in the cache, then it'll throw an exception. The typical pattern that we see, the pattern that we tell people to use, is to do an acquire token silent, catch the exception. If there is an exception, then do an interactive. I don't know if that's implemented in here.
Doesn't look
so
like
this is the this is the silent one. So this is a silent callback. So on success, it calls our API, but on error, this is where we would catch this error. If it is an MSAL error, then or UI required exception, this UI required exception, this is where you would retry with the interactive one. So in here we would In here we would do we'd have to go and get our MSAL object again. But in here, this is where we would do the interactive, and then here's our interactive callback, which the interactive callback, it's sort of like, well, if you wouldn't have a UI required exception in interactive because, of course, it's interactive and you already have a UI.
Yep.
So if this fails, it just fails because the user canceled or did something else. This goes and calls the API, and then the thing. Let's see. What was I looking for? We're looking for the username. Let's see. Current user text is the account. Yep. So update UI uses the account, and the way that the claim name that you need to send in, if you want those to be the same, is, let's see. Not mail, not type. It is. It must be email, which. Yeah, because it's the username. So you can do, I believe it's preferred username is the name of the claim. Or let's see.
I think you're using email for yours.
It must be email then. Yeah.
So you map the email to, or they're looking at email for username?
Here we go. So it says it returns the account.username returns preferred username claim or empty string. So it should be preferred username. I don't know why, to be quite honest, I don't know why this code works, why it thinks my username is that. Because I don't have a preferred
custom claims,
I don't have a preferred username in here unless I'm just missing it somewhere. So it is kind of strange. It is a little strange.
This code doesn't work, or this code works, but I don't know why. There's a meme for that, for sure.
It sort of implies that. Let me go back and look. Okay, so this is the one that we just used. Let's look at this metadata first. The metadata may have remapped it. Let's go look.
Oh.
So that's all the same. Yeah. Name. Yep. So those are all. Yeah. So those are all there. There's no remapping.
There's no preferred name.
Let's go get an access token for. Let's see. This was our Kotlin Android. Well, let's do our admin. Yeah, I won't be able to look at it.
Yeah.
We'll just do test app again.
Okay.
So from this flow, we run this.
Yeah.
And we sign in.
You have signed in with Facebook, but you don't have a Facebook account. I love it.
We don't have preferred username in here.
We don't. No. It's weird.
And we're not doing any mapping. So I wonder if somewhere it must be getting set.
Yeah.
Let me search through here. So
I think that's the place that gets set, man.
That is, and it's sending in the account that we get. I was like, how can I find all usages? Here we go, find usages. So that's in the auth interactive, and then we have initialize UI. We're updating it to null and load account. Let's see what's happening in load account. No, it's just active account.
Just passing it in. Yeah.
So I don't know where it's getting that username. I don't know why it would be setting it. I guess the other thing, the other place we could go look. So, so the account is null, or if the account's not null, then set it to account.username. And it's msal 2.0.10.
Yeah.
And we're not sending a preferred username claim.
No.
So something somewhere, I don't know where, something somewhere is
setting it for us.
Or
passing the right value. It sounds very weird.
Unless maybe there's something in here that's like looking at one or the other. What's that called? It's called user, signed in user. No, just current user.
It just passes in the...
Yeah, it's just setting it there. Yeah, no, that's quite strange. It's where account.user. So it must be something. It's something down in the library. Something down in the library it has a different. I mean, I wonder if it's because I've.
I don't think it's in your claims. I think it's in the library that it will try. You know what? I think they haven't updated the description in the library. Maybe.
Well, if we look at the thing, the only field that has email is the email field and then the mail array.
Yeah.
So, because the given name, family name, I don't even have a display name in here. Given name and family name. Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird.
I don't know
where they're coming from.
I think that if you look at is there open source library for Kotlin that we can go and look at?
It's just msal 4j or whatever.
Oh, is it msal 4j? Okay.
So let's go look in here for preferred username. Okay, so not really a whole lot in here. So preferred usernames. There's also name.
So
this is id token.java. Okay,
which makes sense because it's looking at the ID token.
So preferred use. So it also has name. So I wonder if it's falling back from one to the other.
And it's looking into the claims and says, "Grab me there." Can you zoom in? I can't see anything there.
Well, it has ID token, so it's got ID, so create from JWT. So it's looking for issuer, subject, audience. So of course we've got that. Expiration issued, not before, we got that. So an ID token.name is being set by name.
Oh, you know what? I don't think it's here. I think it's the iAccount object that does the mapping. It's the iAccount object that does the mapping. So it's the Java iAccount thing, or is that an msal thing? You know, in your code, we're dealing with an iAccount. So is that a Java object, like the claims principle in .NET, and then it does the mapping there?
Maybe. Let's go look.
Because I think that's like we're not passing the ID token claim directly. We're passing the iAccount property, and I think this is where the mapping is taking place. Can you change the code to use mail instead of preferred username just to confirm? Okay.
So you would have to do account. I don't know if we can get. Let's see. Account ID ID token, and then you have to parse the ID token.
So account.
Oh no, sorry. There's a get claims on there. That's fine.
Okay.
So you do account claims, and then you'd have to get by key. So you do something like email or whatever.
Okay.
But we could change it that way, although it doesn't like that. But I'm sure it's just a syntax thing.
Doesn't it? Oh, it probably returns something that is not a string, right?
Yeah, this is a toString.
That looks like .NET.
Replace with a safe. Oh, in case it's not there. Okay.
Oh.
And then otherwise none. Okay. Still doesn't like that though, but I'm not. Let's see.
Doesn't like it. Still doesn't
map
like it.
of claims. What does it not like here? Only a safe or non-null asserted is allowed as a nullable receiver of type mutable map string. Okay. Okay. So claims.get email. So that's getting
so claims could also be null. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Claims could be null. So that's here. So one thing to look at before. So our I account, what is the implementation? I'm going to figure out the implementations are of these different accounts, but
is there an account?
Here's our I account.
So an I account is actually an MSAL object rather than a Kotlin.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's an MSAL object.
Okay.
So then there's a username. There's a username method. So let's see. What is the fastest way to find our different account? So these are just tenant profiles. Okay, so that's account. What's the fastest way to find everything that implements I account?
Fork it final references or clone and final references. Can you do?
We've got our account.
That doesn't seem like a big class there. Does it inherit from a base class? No.
It implements I account.
Maybe that's the base class, and then there is a derived class from accounts.
Yeah. Like let's see if anything else. Is anything else implemented? No. Oh no, I need this whole thing. This needs to be like a string. Okay. Nope. So that's the only thing that implements I account. So then that would imply that either we have something is changing. I mean, something's changing that account, right?
Java scares me. It's a matter of getting used to it. I suspect is account probably a partial class of a Java account, and then things happen automatically.
I don't know what would a Java account be though?
It's the same as a claims principle if you derive your own custom claims principle. Although that sounds stupid now that I say it out loud. Why would we? would we create our own, account object just to be special? That's weird, man. It's like
I don't know. Something's. I'm sure we could chase it down, but let's see. So that's the key. This is all the cache key stuff. So that's creating it.
Sorry, Bolt. You can't use automatically. It's trademarked, so you have to pay me 5 cents every time you use it.
So there is this. So when it pulls it out of the cache, it does pull the username property. But I imagine that happens. This is happening long before that, right? So it does say. So when it does, that's ADFS. When it does create it, here we go. So we've got. So this uses object ID or the subject, right? So then username is still preferred username. So it's setting that username here. And then name is being set to name.
Crazy.
I don't see. So this is when it's creating the object in the cache. So I don't know. I don't know why it's coming through like that. It's very weird. I don't know why the username, where it's getting that username from, because we are not sending that back. So somehow, somewhere, it is getting that. Something must be mapping it. Like if there's no preferred username, then use name. That's my only guess, because I don't know where else it would be coming from.
Yeah, it's weird. Maybe we can speak to our SDKs team to see how they map it and why it's like the funny thing is that it worked with your custom policy. It wasn't working with a default sign in, sign out policy. So there's something different between your custom policy claims and the default one. But you don't have preferred name there, so that's extremely weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It is it's very weird, but anyway, I'm going to put this back to the way it was because I don't want to change the sample any more than we already did.
Yep.
So let's go put this somewhere. So let's go get this pushed, and that way everybody can go and get it.
There you go, Sahil, because she was asking where we can find it. It should be on our 425 show GitHub repo. Yeah, we do even have a GitHub repo. How about that? We need to add a command for it. So,
I didn't commit it.
You didn't commit. So yeah, github.com//45 show, and under there you should be able to find this one along with all the other samples that we're doing for our blogs. And JP has to write 2 blogs over this weekend since he's not feeling particularly well. He can stay in bed and write blogs for you folks.
Well, I did get I got my second shot yesterday, so I'm not gonna lie, I am a bit fuzzy. So
Todd said take the day off, and in fact, right after this stream, like when we wrap it up, I'm getting changed and I'm flying out to get my second dose as well, and I'm getting Moderna, so that's gonna screw me up properly. But I don't know how the weekend will be.
I got the Pfizer
for the rest of the day, by the way. So don't try to.
I got the Pfizer one, so which
Pfizer.
was it worked well enough, you know,
Okay.
whatever. So
now you're immortal.
I don't know. I don't feel like super bad, but I'm kind of tired. My arm's really sore, and I'm just like kind of like stiff all over, and just
make sure you're following that. Smart Spring 1 got the AstraZeneca. That's great. Please get immunized. If you can get vaccinated, please get vaccinated. We want everyone to be safe, and we want everyone to have a good weekend as well. We will be back on Tuesday, just me and JP, and we have a few things in the pipeline. One was a full .NET sample that we wanted to go and fix and have some fun. Then there's ADAL to MSAL that we also want to do. So there might be a few things there for us to talk about. We don't have any guests. There will be some news. There will be some fun stuff. Smart Spring has a question, and we have 6 more minutes, so why not? Quick question, slightly off topic. I'm migrating an ASP.NET full framework from ADAL. Oh, see, I'm telling you, this is going to be a hot topic. Should I migrate to MSAL or Microsoft Addendum Web? Well, are you migrating to ASP.NET Core 3.1 and later? Then yes, I would say absolutely Microsoft Addendum Web. If you are migrating to something older, which I don't know why you would do that, then I would say then you may still need to use MSAL to go and acquire token stuff. And there might be some scenarios where you're doing something exotic, which is outside the realm of Microsoft Addendum Web. So without seeing your code, I can't really say. JP, any thoughts on that?
Moving from framework to core and migrating from ADAL to MSAL is going to be a bit of a it'll be a few steps. We'll say that. Depends on how you're using MSAL. Like if you've wrapped ADAL in some higher level object that you're passing around to your classes, maybe it'll be a little bit easier. But it's just going to come down to like how frequently you're using it, how you're instantiating your ADAL clients, what you're doing with your ADAL clients. Like if you've written any sort of custom caching for ADAL and things like that, we'll have to look at those. And then identity.web, is essentially a configuration thing. It doesn't actually do anything on its own. It configures ASP.NET authentication to sign you in. So it does things like it configures the OpenID Connect providers for ASP.NET authentication, and it configures MSAL and sort of squishes them all together, right? And so identity.web itself handles a lot of the like drama between, is this Azure AD or is it B2C or who's the authority or who's this or who's that? So like, the library in itself is really great for getting started and getting going and doing config, but ultimately it's configuring ASP.NET and configuring MSAL. And in .NET Full Framework, we're going to end up having to do essentially the same thing, where we just have to configure both of them sort of standalone and then link them together where they need to be with stuff like authorization code redemption and things like that. So one of the two things alone would be a bit of work. The two things together is going to be a little bit more work, and it's going to be a lot because of the paradigm is changing a bit and how we have to do stuff. But we're going to take a look at that on Tuesday anyway. If you have any sort of code like that you want to share with us, a repro, something small, whatever. If you want to share it with us, come join us on Discord and you can send it to us and we'll be happy to take a look.
It's decided. JP has already updated the title for Tuesday's stream, so he's committed publicly that we're doing ADAL to MSAL. I mean, it wasn't a secret, but now we have.
I'll say, here's the thing. Almost a year ago when we started doing this show in July, one of the very first shows we did was ADAL to MSAL. And I feel like this is the other question for you too, Smart Spring, is are you using ASP.NET Identity and ADAL, or are you just signing people in and not using an ASP.NET Identity database or membership database? Like, if we're doing that, that's like a third big bucket of stuff that we have to plug in and accommodate for, and you sort of end up peeling back the layers of all these different things. So anyway, we're done for today. We're gonna get out of here. Let's go raid somebody. Where are we going to go?
Let's raid. Exciting.
Be sure to come and hang out on Discord. So.
Layla.
We haven't been
Layla
to Layla
is streaming.
Time.
Layla is streaming every day these days. She is busy.
I know. She's busy. All right, let's go over. Let's go raid Layla and see what she's got going on. So
do you want to take the Microsoft developer? You take the other one.
I think we're all set up with. I think we're set up anyway. So let's all go over and see Layla. I hope all of you have a fantastic weekend. Be sure to join Discord. Send us notes. Send us emails if you have any trouble. We'll be happy to help. And have a great weekend, everybody. I'm going to try to not feel like death the rest of the day because of the silly vaccine.
Take the day off. You're welcome, BSD. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.